Good afternoon, friends.
Sure. Yes, yes.
I, on behalf of Beyond Law CLC, welcome you all in our continuum with the series of webinars which we have been conducting, which we started during the lockdown time, and even thereafter we have continued with that. With this support and encouragement from you all, those who are watching us live on the Facebook, as well as on this channel, and subsequently who would be watching us on our Beyond Law CLC channel. It gives an inspiration to do things further for the betterment of the society in whatever way we could contribute. And today is a special day because we have amongst us Mr. Jawad, who is a close friend of ours and who has been sharing his knowledge on the online dispute redressals and what we say alternative dispute redressals forum. And he is the interlink to introduce Mr. Rahim Shamji, a founder and CEO of ADR ODR International, which probably when he started off was on a different tangent. But after these lockdown times and the unlocking times, what we all say that new is the normal. And another facet of the online classes, online webinars is that you can connect with anyone. Today is a classic example when we have amongst us Mr. Rahim Shamji from abroad in UK giving us the insights, and Mr. Jawad straight down from Madras, and participants span India and world. The ADRs and ODRs have taken a different leap of late, and more so in particular last 6 months. And we keep on receiving messages to the effect that we should have sessions wherein we could learn the online dispute redressals as well as the alternative dispute redressals. The interwoven relationship between the two is quite good. And if one learns the nuances of the online dispute redressals, I can vouch upon that every professional or any person wanting to, what we can say, unlocking of the online dispute redressals, he would not only be enriched in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of time, money, etc., what he learns. And how you can become a digital disputes resolution specialist are the key challenges which we all talk of, and especially all on the online or the WhatsApp call, Zoom call, where we feel that during these challenging times, one should always learn such nuances. Keeping that in mind, we requested two worldwide known speakers on these topics. We have already been introduced to Mr. A.J. Jawad on two topics, and both these sessions have been well received. And even otherwise, he has come to Punjab Haryana High Court to train the people. So all people and universities, his passion to teach is not only inspiring, but his knowledge, to be believed that knowledge is sharing and caring, is another facet. I will ask Mr. Jawad, who has introduced Mr. Rahim on an online platform, but whatever we could Google it out is something else. But as we say, one is to straight from the horse's mouth, but we can say not from the horse's mouth, but from a person who is very close to that mouth, to tell about Mr. Rahim. Over to you, Mr. Jawad.
Thank you, Vikash, and thank you, Beyond CLC, for hosting us on this very crucial topic today. Hello and good evening to everyone. Actually, this topic that we are going to be discussing today has actually a very tremendous bearing on the very future of the legal profession. So as we all know, this pandemic, and it's showing actually no signs of letting up, has brought into very sharp focus the need for technology, not just in the justice delivery system of the country, but even in our day-to-day lives, which includes the education of our children. Now, the developments that may not have happened even in 10 years down the line have actually been fast-forwarded. And within the past 6 months, we have seen this whole change, the new normal that has set in now. Now, in this new reality that we are living in, where does the legal profession as we understand it stand? What happens to our conventional ideas of dispute resolution? What will the future look like? So it is to discuss these things that I suggested to Vikash that we invite Rahim Shamji, founder and CEO of ADR ODR International. Rahim and I met in 2012, and since then he has been a friend, mentor, guide, and quite a lot of things. When he started ADR ODR International more than 5 years back, Rahim was very prophetic about the rise of online dispute resolution and wanted the name of his organization to reflect this reality. So that's why we see ADR ODR International. In keeping with this forward-looking and proactive nature, Rahim has now evolved the idea of creating digital dispute resolution specialists who would be future ready to meet the evolving challenges of dispute resolution in this the new era of digitalization that we are witnessing now. I don't want to stand for too long between you and Rahim, because what he has to share with you is very important, and how I see it as the future of our profession. So over to Rahim now. So after his presentation on his idea of DDRS, which is actually, the trademark for this is pending, we can ask him questions on this idea and what the future means for not just us as legal professionals, but also for the people from, for the people of India, from the perspective of access to justice. Over to you, Rahim. Thank you, Vikash, once again, and thank you to all the participants who have taken part in this webinar today. I'm sure you'll find it very useful and enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jawad. Thank you, Vikas, for the very kind invitation. Before I say any more words, whoever is administering the platform, my screen sharing has been disabled, so I can't screen share. So if somebody could do that while I'm saying a few words, that would be very helpful. First of all, I want to say a very big, warm good afternoon to most of you, because you're all in the afternoon section now in India. And to all those of you who are watching on Facebook Live or have logged in here, I see so many familiar names. I see so many familiar faces. To each one of you, my sincere greetings. And it's wonderful to share platforms with people like Jawad and all of you who are committed to the notion of dispute resolution, to trying to find ways of peaceful norms that bring about long-lasting peace in people's conflicts. Now, what I'll do, if my screen sharing is enabled, which I think it is,
it's loud. Enable.
I will begin the presentation, and I think if we could reserve questions towards the end, I won't be very long. I think about 20-25 minutes, maybe less, in terms of talking you through some things and what the philosophy behind it is, why we're doing it, and then we can have a discussion. So most of you know me. I'm the founder and CEO of ADR ODR International, and I was a barrister in the UK, and I was a litigator. I was an advocate in courtrooms, and I found what I call the light of mediation and the light of peaceful dispute resolution. And so the journey through this, around 2014, 2015, I began to realize that the dispute resolution community, the legal community globally, not just in India or other parts of the world, but even in the Western countries, were not taking seriously the tsunami of technology that was sweeping through the profession. And I was very worried that if we were not ready for that development, we would struggle. So as Jawad alluded, when I set up ADR ODR International, I made sure that the letters ODR were part of the company name. It had to represent every day to people that they should ask me, that we should talk about the idea of digital dispute resolution. But nobody could foresee the pandemic in the way that it's hit the whole world. And let's look at some of the challenges and opportunities that come from it. Now, I've been talking about this idea of becoming a DDRS for about 2.5 to 3 years. And I have begun to realize that if we look at the legal graduate market globally, we find huge satisfaction in barrister. We have huge satisfaction. But what we don't realize is that satisfaction is short-lived. The satisfaction does not foresee the challenges that are coming. And so, congratulations to India, because I saw recently that there's been some kind of decree that requires law schools to teach mediation in schools. And that's a great development, but it's not far enough. It's not far enough, because what we're suggesting is that being a lawyer and then being a mediator or being an arbitrator will be enough. That's still too short-lived. And if you look at the evolving countries, the US, the UK, and now Canada and places, the DDRS is what we say is the new future title that people will be looking to become. Let's also think about this. In the past, being a specialist was an advantage, right? Then we went back to being generalists. Then we went back to being specialists. Now, I'm predicting that in order to sustain the changes of the development that comes from technology, you can only be a multi-generational specialist. Now, I'll come to that in a moment. So we have applied for trademark and we're very close to receiving the confirmation, but we are coining DDRS. We're going to talk about what are the benefits of being a DDRS and why will DDRS be a new normal. I'll look at some examples of DDRS globally, and then we'll look at where will tomorrow's disputes come from. And that starts to shape us from today towards the future. So there it is. It's a digital dispute resolution specialist. And what we're saying that you must be competent in negotiation, mediation, arbitration, and litigation. And that if you don't have these 4 skill sets, you cannot be a DDRS. You could be a part qualified DDRS, but you would not be a fully qualified DDRS. And when we look at the world of the DDRS, we're looking at 2 fundamental skills: digital skills and digital process. And what does digital skills mean? So that means the ability to navigate around technology. That means having the infrastructure of good technology. The ability to understand the difference between a Zoom meeting and an MS Teams meeting, Google Hangouts, Skype for Business, WebEx, all the platforms that we talk about. Are you able to navigate around those in a way that allows this to happen? But more importantly, can you combine the digital skills to actually using it as a process to resolve the disputes? So I'll give you an example. In the United Kingdom right now, in England and Wales, over 60 to 70% of hearings that are happening every day are now only happening online. All administrative hearings are going online. And the government is announcing reviews of selling court buildings because they don't need them. They don't need the court buildings. And the question we always ask ourselves is law a service or a destination? Do you have to go somewhere to receive justice? Or can justice be a process that you can access? And a bit like that, the DDR an option is you have to digitalization. Let's look at some of them. And the first is access to justice. Look at SDGs. Goal 16 is based around access to justice and allowing people to resolve their disputes in a timely fashion. I cannot think of a better way than using digitalization to allow people to access justice. But remember, the problem word in that first bullet is the word justice. That's the problem word. Because we as lawyers are always trained as justice being this court-based, liberal, egalitarian view of justice. And we somehow have lost what justice means to ordinary people. But we'll come back to that. 2, your clients for tomorrow and the next 5-10 years are today's youth. And young people do not see a dichotomy between living online and being online. Now, for most of us, we'll be online, then we'll go offline. We'll go and connect with somebody, we'll go back offline. For young people, they live online. They're not being online. They will do everything online. And you tell these people, you can buy airline tickets online, you can order food online, you can go to the cinema, you can download movies, but you can't resolve your disputes online. And if you do, it'll take a long time. Not gonna work. Look at the demographics. Look at the idea of tomorrow's people. I was doing a presentation in Africa at the end of last year. Africa as a continent, the mean age of people in Africa is 19 years old. That tells you it's heavily weighted in the young areas. These generations will grow, they will not follow the norms that we're used to. People with disabilities now suddenly find access to justice and resolving disputes very easy compared to what it was before. We create efficiency within the market. We give certainty to business. We give people the opportunity to go back to their lives. We lower costs at a whole new level. And we allow instant decision-making. And there are many more advantages, but these are some of the top ones that I can think of. And why will DDRS become the new normal? And we go back to 2001, and we look at the paper written by Mark Prensky called Digital Native versus Digital Immigrant. Now in 2001, this paper was suggesting that people born after 1980 are more digital natives, and those born pre-1980 and further before 80 are digital immigrants. And he says there'll come a time where the tipping point is such that digital natives will outnumber the digital immigrants, and ODR and the digitalization of life is no longer an option. It's no longer an option. Now, if you think of 1980 as the benchmark that Mark Prensky tells us, we are now in 2020. Technology is part and parcel where we text. It's the smartphone where we do everything. And that move globally is very powerful. Therefore, digital is no longer a choice. And the big thing that's happening in the world is legal education is changing. Legal education is incorporating principles of mediation, negotiation, arbitration, and now universities are teaching online. It's not a choice. You don't have to go to the campus. And therefore that digital presence in teaching changes the mind. Technology and ODR become normal, and we now look at the future of augmented dispute resolution and artificial intelligence. And if you are not aware, IBM invented a computer called the Watson computer. And with Watson, it is able to process large amounts of data into milliseconds and give you results that are mind-blowing. For example, it can produce a will in any country, in any jurisdiction, because it's analyzed thousands of wills, and it can produce something in about 60 seconds. The human mind can't do that. The human mind can't do that. And so if you're going to be a lawyer that's going to be drafting wills in the next 10 years, you're not going to have much of a job left. because computers will do that for you. You'll type in your details, you'll type in your assets, and pop out will be your will. It's same with cancer diagnosis. It's same with all sorts of other medical revolutions that are happening. Technology allows us to do this. I mean, did you all see that Apple brought out a new Apple Watch last week or the week before? It can give you an ECG. It can give you an ECG. It can tell you if you're having a heart attack or if you're about to have one. Think about what we're doing with technology and the speed with which it becomes domestic. Now, I know we can argue that parts of India and other parts of the world will never be able to afford those products. Yes, but smaller, less valuable products come to market, but the technology remains the same. And so what is ODR? I don't think we need to go into that because this audience is very familiar with it. This is the big one. Technology becomes your fourth party. For those of us that are mediators and arbitrators, we always think of three parties, two parties and us, the neutral. But now you start to think of technology as your new party. It's your new venue. You don't have to go hire a room. You don't have to go to the courtroom for court annex mediation. We don't have to build these big buildings to host people. It's nice to meet people. We want to have that. And the human touch is better. Don't get me wrong. But we've got to start thinking about accessing more people. And therefore, remember the idea that technology is the fourth party. So what's the rise of technology? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Yeah, so we had the invention of the smartphone. Number one revolution. Then we have voice recognition. If you have Alexa or another device, you can talk to, ask about the weather, order your food. I have a friend who doesn't live too far from me. I was in his house the other day. He's running low on milk. He goes to Alexa, Alexa, get me some milk. 45 minutes later, Amazon delivered milk to his front door. It's crazy. The world's gone crazy. No one, he's talking to a machine. 4G technology, now we have 5G coming. Speed and connectivity of the internet is improving all the time. We have virtual reality. I can have a virtual tour of museums around the world like I'm in that room. Augmented reality, where you start to bring the real and the virtual into this new dimension. And then the big push that accelerated all this change is the virus. I know COVID-19 is devastating. It's the worst. I mean, it's terrible. And you live in a country where your cases are at another level to other parts of the world. And I have every sympathy with people who have been affected. But what it has done is it has clearly been a defining moment in our lives that's changing this drive towards technology. So I want to share 3 examples with you of online dispute resolution to show you how they're moving. I'm going to talk to you about the EU online dispute resolution platform. I'll talk to you a little bit about the paperless courts in South Africa, and then I'll end with WIPO, and that's the World Intellectual Property Organization, and how they deal with a lot of this dispute resolution. Now, 450 million people live in the European Union, and they are bound by this law that says any consumer disputes with businesses across any of the member states, if it can't be resolved by negotiation, you must refer them to a platform, and that's the website there, Europa Consumers ODR. And there are certified bodies. And Zoe, who's Jawad and my colleague, who's based in Greece, who couldn't be with us today because she always joins me on these presentations, but she's teaching ODR this week, funnily enough. Her entity in Greece is an approved body for this platform. And what does it do? It allows people in London or in Paris or in Helsinki or in Munich to resolve disputes with another trader in a different member state through mediation, arbitration, or conciliation, all through a platform. It's incredible. And it allows people not to worry about filing in different courts. It's quick. Some of these disputes are resolved in 31, 32 days. I mean, this is pretty incredible if you think about the speed at which it can happen. And it's made the idea of dispute resolution truly borderless and frictionless. Technology doesn't respect boundaries. Technology respects speed, efficiency, and doing what it needs to do. Let's move to Africa. You know, as part of the development of the sustainable goals in South Africa piloted a paperless court. You've got to think South Africa with a very large amount of people living below the poverty line, making submission of papers and cases truly paperless. Remarkable, an absolutely remarkable achievement about how this can happen. And then you start to see that the numbers of cases increase because people feel that this is a mechanism they can go to. It had access to the lawyers, but it didn't need the lawyers to do the filing. People could file directly. It's not complicated, it's straightforward. And third, let's look at WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. Now they deal with a lot of domain disputes as well. So if I owned a domain and you said you own that domain because it belongs to you and I had it as a different person, the idea of resolving those disputes through mediation and arbitration and now online, because you could be in India and I could be in the USA. We don't have to travel to meet or to go choose which court we go to and which jurisdiction has precedence over us or control. It's incredible. And this is happening every day. Every day they're receiving cases and people are being, or people are having their cases resolved effectively. So if we summarize some of the challenges and the opportunities that are coming, number one, Generation Z. That's the latest youth label they give to young people coming through. They're here. They have a totally different mindset. And don't think that this is a Western concept, that in India, these young people think differently. They're exposed to the same things. DDRS is no longer a choice. Skill acquisition is essential. You will need to have multiple skills. You know, think of a violin, you have to have different bows now. You can't have the one string and you just play the same tune all the time. Some of you would have qualified as lawyers and you would hope you'll retire as lawyers. I have news for you. You won't. Multiple professions, multiple occupations is now the norm in navigating this way forward. It is just not an option. And we are preparing ourselves to be ready for the revolution of the DDRS. And so we are launching in a few weeks our diploma in DDRS. And the idea will be that if you've done a mediation course, arbitration foundation course, a strong negotiation program, and an online dispute resolution program, all of which we offer as well, or equivalents will recognize, plus a thesis on DDRS, you will have the title DDRS. There'll be a dedicated website and panel, and you will be listed as an international DDRS. And this is what we feel we need to do to move the profession globally towards this opportunity. You can always get in touch with us. We'd be very happy to speak to you, but I think let me hand over back to Jawad and we can have some Q&A.
We are unmuting Jawad because he was saying that the bandwidth is low, so we are just unmuting. Yeah, Jawad.
Rahim, thank you so much for the excellent presentation and for explaining to us what the future is going to be. I have some questions. First, I have a few questions to you from myself, and then I'll put on the questions which I have received on the chat box here. Now, you're very familiar with the Indian situation, Rahim. You have been to India so often, and you have done so much of training over here. One of the questions that is being asked when you talk of, virtual hearings and technology and digital dispute resolution is that it may not be affordable to a large section of the people, which I think you also mentioned in the course of your talk just now. So how do you see the prospect of DDRS growing in India in the near future?
Okay. Let's, before we look at that question, the question before is, how many people are accessing the courts anyway and are prohibited by the current cost and the current structure? And the answer is a huge number. So when you create DDRS, you need to then think about the cultural growth in that environment. So what might work in London or New York or Paris may not work for Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Pune. But we will need to find a nuanced local approach. Now, you probably wouldn't do mediation by WhatsApp in the West, but you may need to do mediation by text message in other parts of the world. It's still digital. It's still allowing access to justice. It is using technology. And let's think 3, 4, 5 years back, 10 years back. In fact, let me tell you a little story. In 2003, I was on a flight from London to Atlanta, and I met one of the senior directors of JP Morgan, which is a big financial bank in New York. And he said to me, I'm going to Bangalore to set up the JP Morgan Center. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, Bangalore is the capital of IT in the world now. Can you imagine that was said 5, 10 years before that? Now it's a norm. And India will not stand still in growth of technology. So don't think just because we can't afford to help the poorer people, we shouldn't do it. By doing it, you will increase the reach of poorer people, and you'll find ways to reach them. And cost is not the issue. Accessibility is the issue. So, you know, governments and other infrastructure specialists need to invest in that internet infrastructure to allow people to access. And it won't just be conflict resolution they'll be accessing more services online. So, yeah. And we've also got to look at this, by the way, in the environmental idea.
Yes.
You know, how do you harness technology and solar power and other things to power and charge batteries and do other things which are not happening before?
I think that resonates with what I also feel. And in fact, it answers, I think, to a large extent, a question which Umar Ramanathan has raised, where she says that, you know, culturally and the fact that many areas geographically suffer from technology dysfunction, many choose to litigate more out for need to prove their point, and so they choose a judgment to a settlement. How do you think the socio-cultural aspect will be handled in the digital space?
It's a heavy question, Aman. Thanks for that. Let me, in my limited notion of the Hindi language, but the idea here is justice or insaf. You know, we talk about this concept of insaf. I want to go and get my justice.
The Hindi word is nyay.
Nyay, yeah. But when you say you get some kind of fair result.
Yes.
What does that mean? Why are we pushing a notion or a concept to people that the only way to get this elusive word, courtroom, and you wait years, but when that judge tells you you're right or wrong, most of the time, 50% don't agree with it. You're the most litigious country in the world. You love appeals. Why? Why are we pushing this rhetoric? This can't be good for people. And so let's even park the idea of why people are choosing to litigate, because we've made it the only tool in the toolbox. There's got to be other tools in the toolbox. The second thing to think about is, let's start focusing on tomorrow's generation, not the generation that's already in the system. Look at longevity of this situation. The next 25, 30 years belongs to tomorrow's youth. And they will not forgive you if you don't allow them to connect on dispute resolution platforms that are digital in nature. Otherwise, the economy, the structure of harmony within a country like India and others will suffer.
I think that's a very important point that you have made, Rahim, because when you said, see, the whole problem today is, where is the alternative? This is the only thing we present to people, that this is the only way to resolve your disputes. So therefore, the choice is very limited. There are not many other tools that are available in the toolkit. So I feel that, when we talk of the socio-cultural aspect, I think it's simply because we inherited a legacy of the court system from the British. And, and we feel...
I was personally involved in the legacy, yes.
And we strongly believe, that that's the only way that we can resolve. I think when alternatives are presented, certainly people will embrace those alternatives. It may take some time. As you rightly said, it's the future, because we are targeting the future generation now. We are not talking about oldies like me or, anybody else who are on the way out, actually. So what we will be doing today is we are laying the foundation for a dispute, not a conflict-free society, but at least a society where conflict resolution would not be inaccessible. In that, I would just like to share a small experience that I had today personally. I had a matter before the Supreme Court today. And normally, whenever the matter comes up, we have to travel all the way to Delhi. A client has to spend on our flight charges, on our hotel accommodation, and so many other costs. But I could just sit at home in my room and I could, follow the hearing, and I could instruct the senior counsel who was arguing the matter over there. So definitely technology is very helpful in that sense. So we need to, come out of that notion that it is unaffordable, because as you rightly said, it is something much more affordable, which will make justice much more affordable than what it is today. Now, one very interesting question from Mr. R. Bhalla. So he says, what will be the new name for lawyers and judges in this digital age? Will it be digital dispute officers? Will judges be called as digital dispute officers?
It's a very good question.
And let me add one more, sorry to interrupt you. He's also asking, are we moving from argument skills in courtrooms to dispute resolution skills online?
Look, I think that, yes, I think we are moving. And I will share with you, I did this very presentation I'm doing to you now 2 Fridays ago to the ABA, the American Bar Association ODR Expo. They had an expo. Global providers came to speak. Now, the ABA had a conference in London 5 years ago, and I was a speaker at the physical conference. The title of the session on ADR, and listen to this title, it was called The Death of the Trial Lawyer. The Death of the Trial Lawyer. And when they did some analysis in certain states, they realized that lawyers' average trials were every 5 to 6 years, doing one trial, not hearings, trials. The art of cross-examination, the art of examination in chief. It's eroding because people are opting away from a risk strategy to a control strategy. And one of the things I want us to think about is, I'm not sure we need to think about titles for the officers or for the judges. We may want to give them a DRO title. My interest is the courts should be always available if everything else fails. We need something, but it's not the first place you go. And if we're smart, we will integrate court even into the digital process. And so just like Jawad having a hearing on a laptop, the choice will be for the clients to say, hearing, mediation, arbitration, or structured negotiation. And that's what I think we need to focus on. But that's happening. In my humble opinion, the role of the traditional lawyer is becoming highly defunct. Highly defunct. And I would recommend you read 2 good books by the same author, Richard Susskind. The first is called Tomorrow's Lawyers, which was written pre-pandemic. And the second one, and I've got it here, it's called Online Courts and the Future of Justice. I don't know if you can read that. Right? Great book. And what this guy's a futurologist. He's looking at the development of what we're doing. And when you start to read these kinds of books, you'll start to see the writing is on the wall. And many lawyers in India, I mean, what does ADR stand for? I've always had this joke, you probably know, some of you. ADR stands for an alarming drop in revenue for lawyers. It's not alternative dispute resolution. And so the gatekeepers cannot gatekeep unless they retrain to understand the digital narrative.
There's one question from Kavita. How is AI programmed to handle emotions and display empathy?
You know, it's not. But what we do, and we've been talking about this in our team, is how do we create and train people in digital empathy? Digital empathy. What is digital empathy? How do we create this connection online? And you and I, and I'm pre-1980 as well, many of you and I are going to struggle with this because being online is not just something we've done normally. But my son, who's 5 years old, can talk to his friends for half an hour as if they're in front of him. There's no barrier. And once the barrier goes, then the question is not about how do you enable empathy. That's the new empathy. That's what empathy becomes. It becomes a new way of doing it. So I think we need to start rethinking that it's not about what's the alternative, it's what it will be. Just like the new norm, I think Vikas said earlier, things become the new normal. This is the new normal. It's happening.
I will just pitch in, though I remember that when we had typewriters, when we started the practice and they were computers, I had asked Mr. Steno to switch over to the computers. He said that don't unemploy me, and at the same time it is very, very difficult and it will not stick on. But it's the other way around, even if now, if you tell to someone that there's something called as typewriter, probably you'll have to Google what is a typewriter.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely right. So Rahim, what would your advice be to the new generation, the Gen Z lawyers, as you referred to them, who are already tech geeks and well-versed in the use of technology?
So if I could create a brand new program, I wouldn't even call it a law degree. Yeah. I would call it, dispute resolution, whatever. And law would just be a part of it. The problem is we base it all on law, and then we think law becomes the building blocks. Yeah. And that's the bit that needs to change. You need to know law, but you need to know much more. If you become a doctor, you don't just learn about how the head functions or how the hand functions. You have to learn about everything. And then within that, you now have to have at least 2 disciplines of specialty. And I think being a lawyer is a bit like that. You learn the basics, but you've also got to learn about all the other things. And law schools in India have a very important role to play if you're going to prepare for the next tsunami of change coming in India. Otherwise, justice will become privatized. So
what you're saying is the complete, the paradigm of legal education has to be totally redefined now.
Totally.
Because, yeah, it has to, because all what we are today doing is actually we are training a set of gladiators who go out there and fight in the arenas called courts.
Yeah.
So we need people who have a comprehensive understanding of disputes, conflicts, not just the law alone. Apart from that, even the behavioral sciences, all those things I think should be incorporated as a part of the legal education.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting.
Yesterday, you and I were on an emotional intelligence webinar with Tasneem and Zoe and Virash, and we're talking about bias. How can we not teach students of tomorrow about unconscious bias? Even as lawyers, forget being a mediator. You just need to start to think. And this new knowledge is phenomenal, but we need to share it.
One last question, Rahim, before we finish. Let me see if there are any more questions on the
One question is there, Jawad. I can read that. It says, he says how to, this is by Siva. How to shape up a career in the ADR, especially for the recent law graduates, particularly in India. Does it require any technical qualification along with law degree?
I think linked to that, I have one question, Rahim, is Is ADR ODR International planning any DDRS courses for India?
Yeah, we have them all the time.
For the dinosaurs like me?
Yeah. So look, we run programs with KDLX chambers. So that's Jazbir and Jawad here every month on mediation. We have an arbitration course the week after. We have our negotiation school in Dubai. And although it's difficult to travel right now, we will be offering an interim online program soon. Our ODR course is online. And the idea is if you have all 4 qualifications, mediation, arbitration, negotiation, and ODR, you're ready to apply to be a DDRS. So whether you are a recent graduate, Siva, or you are a practicing lawyer, in my humble opinion, it's not about age, it's about the ability to want to improve, the ability to have and see the changes that are coming and prepare for them. And I think it's an onus on every lawyer. How will you advise your clients? How will you understand all of that if you don't understand the multiplying effect of all these 4 different disciplines that work together now?
Okay, there's one question by Lal Tejwani. Will the lawyer term be replaced with some other term, and skill sets include digital empathy, legal system, emotional intelligence, legal issues, online behavior, and cyber disguises? Will the people take this up in India?
I think the word lawyer doesn't need to be replaced. The word lawyer just becomes part of being a wider DRS. And because of COVID, we now need to be DDRS. So there's still a role for being a lawyer. I'm saying to you, it's not the only role that you should have.
Jawad, we have Monica, who's the same.
Yeah.
Since she's a trained mediator, plus she's a trainer herself, we will ask what are the insights, what she had learned today, and what are her takes in the today's time. I will ask Monica to unmute herself as well as to come on the video. Then thereafter we have Varuna.
Yeah.
Then we will ask Varuna also.
Sure.
Because in terms of your command, everybody has closed the videos. Yeah, so Monica ma'am, kindly show the video. Meanwhile, Varuna can also do that.
Yes.
I don't know, because in this time sometimes I don't know whether she's there. I will ask if Varuna could also show the video.
Is Varuna there now?
Varuna Gugnani, Bhandari. And if somebody else wants. Okay, we have Uma ma'am.
Yeah, Uma can give her insights.
Uma ma'am can give. And any other person, because you know large number of the participants.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Varuna ma'am, kindly your video also.
I'm just trying to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Varuna.
Hi, Jawad. It's a pleasure to attend this webinar. See, this digital empathy, which Rahim was talking about, is something to learn, you know. I have been doing online mediation now on average 3 per day with the Delhi Dispute Resolution Society, with the Delhi Mediation Center and Supreme Court. It is difficult, but people are so apprehensive that they want to settle because they think if we don't settle now, there is no way. So using the techniques which we have learned in physical mediation, I am using the same techniques. Certainly there is a limitation, but there is a rush in people to settle their matters, especially matrimonial and commercial matters, which are check bouncing, because Delhi Mediation Center sends us all check bouncing cases. So certainly that we will not say that it is mediation. Here we are just, you know, faisla kara rahe ho, you know, it is not justice or nyay or insaf that we've been taught to do. That is something. Digital empathy certainly is something I would like to learn. And this emotional intelligence and unconscious bias. It is, I think, somewhere we've read about it while we are doing our training courses of physical mediation. But certainly, this is something new, which is called digital empathy. So something, if can be spoken about, a little bit of outline of it can be spoken about.
So, Varuna, thank you for your kind words. So we teach a lot of this digital empathy on our online digital dispute resolution courses, and they're one-day programs, and you can find out more information with Jazbir, Jawad, or our team. The idea is that you start to rethink the idea of the empathy that we're used to, which is the body language and the breathing and the eye contact that we generally see in a room setting. And you start to take a different view, you redefine it. And we go through that training with you online to help you understand. And for each person, digital empathy is slightly different depending on how you use technology.
Yeah. See, it becomes very difficult when I'm mediating. It is very difficult because the yelling can be controlled. When the outburst of emotion in a matrimonial matter can be controlled on this platform, but really you can't read the body language, which is very essential.
But you need to also understand how people should sit in front of a camera, right?
Yeah.
Because right now we're all doing headshots.
Yeah.
And you can ask people to sit further away.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good idea.
There's ways of doing this, and I think it's important that. And sorry if I say this, but don't use the traditional definition to redefine your digital empathy.
Okay.
You've got to create a new digital vocabulary. Right?
Okay.
So what empathy means in the person needs redefining in the online world.
Redefining?
In the
digital world.
Okay.
Uma, can we have something from you?
I don't know whether I'll be audible because my laptop has gone for a toss.
No, you're very audible.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Rahim. And as usual, your brilliant self. Yeah, I personally feel that once we have to accept the digital space, and we have to equip ourselves with the skills that we need. Especially in negotiation and communication, we need to have different skill sets. And for that, I think everyone has to undergo a training. Without that, using the digital space is not going to be easy. The other factor is, especially in India, when the parties come to the lawyer's office to access something like this, there are other logistic problems also. So I think that will sort of get sorted out as we move on. But yes, there are challenges, and we have to find out how we are going to meet these challenges. That's what I look at this point. Thank you.
Has Monica Chalota joined us? Is she there? No?
Meanwhile, you can ask someone. I can. You are saying Sheila Balsan, we will ask.
Sheila Balsari Behen is here. We would like to, because she's right now in Boston. And in spite of the time difference, she has taken part in this. So we would like to hear her views.
So we are unmuting Sheila.
Yeah.
We are unmuted.
Sheila Behen, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning and good evening, everybody. It was really a nice session, and thank you very much, Rahim Bhai and Jawad Bhai and Vikas Bhai. I just want to know, how do you expect in India, ODR will progress? There are no laws. There are no laws on mediation so far. There are no laws on or no SOP for, at least in Maharashtra, there is no SOP for online dispute resolution. Yeah. So how do we go ahead?
I think this is going to be what I would call a civil society idea. I think organizations that run ADR, run mediation, run arbitration, they will need to come forward. You'll need to lobby central government as well as state government, but you can create, it's not difficult to copy some very good best practice on rules and regulations. And I think, look, you've managed to have an incredible mediation culture without a law. Now, we all want to have a law because we think we need it, but actually you've done incredibly well already. So the transition to online mediation and online arbitration, I don't think is going to be difficult. It won't fall because there's no rules. And we are very, very capable of finding our own feet in this area. But, you know, I mean, what progress we have made in 6 months of the pandemic, 7 months. I can only think what's going to happen by the end of 2021.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rahim.
I think that's very important, Rahim, because the way mediation has progressed in India and the way the organizations that have come up, we have Madhyam, we have CAMP, we have AMP, we have KDLEX, we have FCDR, we have so many organizations which are offering. And one of the best things about it is, you know, the synergy that is developing from these organizations working with each other. The thing is that the principle of Ubuntu you can see in action in India, actually, because we are all, you know, running towards the jar of sweets to establish mediation practice in India. And I think now we have to also include the ODR concept in it and see how we can promote it. I think Monica has joined us.
We are unmuting her. Yeah, she is unmuted.
Yes, Monica, we are very eager to listen to you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's my honor and privilege that I had been part of this. And now MCPC has also started the online program. So we are going to start an online 20-hour refresher program from tomorrow for Manipur. So I had joined this program to get insights so that can be helpful in my online presentations also. And it was, Rahim Shamji's presentation was a guideline for me how to carry it on. I really am thankful for that. And with whatever we had gained today, we are going to propose the online mediation for our center also, because we are little lacking. We had not started yet, but with this we will be. From tomorrow, the refresher program, and thereafter the training, the mediations also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
In fact, Jawad, the intent was only the same as what Monica said, that we have not actually triggered off in the right sense the way we can actually go with the mediation. We are actually not stimulated in that sense to go for the online dispute redressals, but once we start participating in the webinars, trainings, the mindset changes. It's only with the flux of time the things do change. Yes. Like, who thought of at one point of time that there could be virtual courts? And as you said that in one of my cases, the lawyer was arguing, senior advocate from Delhi, and that day he said pass over, and thereafter he was arguing out here only. So he didn't even have to come here straight from Delhi. He participated in the Supreme Court as well as in this court.
Yeah.
The pressure was only of to catch up in the court, but the pressure of running, staying in a hotel, etc., the tiredness, etc., is there. Or same way, once we learn the ODR and the ODR for the purposes of ADRs, or I say for all litigation. And what you said, these all trainings, we might say that it is only for the mediation or arbitration. But once you are trained to understand the intelligence or the psychology through an online, because a lot of clients of late do speak that we can have the discussion on a Zoom meet or any other platform, this Microsoft team, Geo team. So these are the lessons which we learn, and once we sharpen up our skills, it will help in all yes. perspectives of law, and not only law, beyond law also on these aspects.
Yeah.
See, sir, here in India, we are all having the file system. If my all answers are clear, only then I can put to the Honorable Chairman of the Mediation Center that this is the very secure program and we can go for the online mediation also. So that my many questions have been answered today. Thank you to Mr. Rahim Shamji. So from Jawad sir, we are always taking the cue. We are always calling him when we are in trouble. So he's always there.
Wonderful.
So I think we don't have any questions as such, Mr. Jawad.
No, I think that's it. I see 2 chats here. Let me see what it is about. Yeah. Yes, Kavita has pointed out, we started our centers with 1 table and 1 room. Now we have grown as a Viriksham, a big tree. With COVID-19, we moved to online, and we will shift to DDRS, which is the compelling need to equip now. So I think that's it, Vikash. Thank you so much. And
so thank you all the participants who watched us live on the Facebook and on this platform. And as we keep on repeating that, since this video will also be uploaded on the channel of Beyond Law CLC, to all those participants, I can say participants only, though they will be watching it, to the effect that we are glad that you are encouraging us, which helps us to keep on doing the webinars. Tomorrow, we will be having a session on CPC amendments, an instrument for expediting civil suits. What is the way forward? By Honorable Mrs. Justice Roshan Dalvi, a former judge of Bombay High Court. Just like Jawad, ma'am has been kind enough to give insights on different perspectives of law. And she's also an erudite speaker plus immense knowledge. Therefore, on our request, she's been kind enough to accede to our request to give the takes on various issues of law. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Rahim Shamji, who acceded to the request of Mr. Jawad, who actually helped us as facilitator. And what I said at the outset, and while we part for the day, the online sessions do teach us that the boundaries are only in the mindset. Like in the digital world, we can talk, meet, generate ideas. As they say, baat chalegi to mehfilein bhi banti rahengi. On that parting shot, thank you everyone. Stay safe, stay blessed. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.